This is part 2 of the Livid line interview. If you haven't seen part 1, it can be found in the pinned comment below. If you have, then sit back and relax, as we are starting right now.
Moving on a little bit here, side quests are a part of most, if not all, RPGs within the gaming industry. So what are your expectations regarding side quests in Hytale, and how do they compare to other RPG games in terms of depth and quality in your mind so far with what we know?
I'd say when it comes to like side quests, there's nothing more disappointing than the feeling of it being a time filler. I'd say in MMOs and RPGs, the main culprit that comes to mind are kind of like fetch quests. For the love of God, I would please just stop making fetch quests in games. I'm so sick of them, and I don't want to do them. They come up and it literally makes me not want to play the game. So like we want things that compound a story, that give us like a satisfying feeling for going out and doing the task that was asked of us, you know?
Right.
I just want them to really feel like they're incorporated into the game experience rather than like this surface level thing that's tacked on.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'll tell you by the 10th time a Quebec like asks me for me to go like get leaves or branches or something for them, I'll just turn around and burn the whole forest to the ground and call it a day. Like,
yeah, I can feel that.
So we already know that, you know, through things that, through like faction reputation, like we know that's a thing, you know, and it'll influence how the world as a whole treats you. So if everything you do and all side quests and all that sort of stuff, like has a direct consequence and all the quests kind of really feel that way, I think they'll be on the right path. But if they start really implementing too much surface level stuff that's just like tacked on, that's going to be like a huge breaking point for me. It's going to be a thing that I will complain about 100%.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Same. Side quests in a lot of games are just like terrible. Like the side quests are so slept on in so many games because, there have been a couple good examples of side quests, but like most of the time like you said, it's fetch quests. It's like, it's some mundane task that we really don't care about and doesn't really affect anything. And, you know, this kind of leads into the next question. So do you actually expect these side quests to have like a noticeable impact on the general gameplay of Hytale? Or will players it'll be more of a thing where they can ignore it without them having a major penalty to progression? Which would you prefer? Like between those two?
I think that I'd want them to have a noticeable impact on gameplay. I would love for there to be, you know, significant penalties to your story or significant bonuses that like lead you in a certain direction. Because like, I think the biggest thing the key to replayability is getting a genuinely unique experience every time you play. And if I'm just playing through, you know, the story, you know, 4 or 5 times, and I know every single time I have to go pick up this stupid sword and bring it back to this dude for whatever reason he left it across the map. You know, it's just, I don't understand that. But if like I'm going to a point and it's like, hey, here's a piece of story content that's made through this one prefab, right? A thing that you don't experience in this other playthrough. You know, that would be a genuinely cool side quest. You know, you see a new building entity that they've crafted that's, you know, handcrafted and put in the world in like this random generation area. And you see things that you're not, you know, used to seeing. And I think that would be the way that I'm hoping they do it because of the amount of prefabs they've sent. It's like over 7,000 prefabs they've built, which I know includes like trees and stuff like that. But I'm hoping there's like a sizable chunk of like side quest or story content that is random. You know, I hope that's a thing.
I actually really like it when games have kind of like they expand the material of the game, like with a side quest, like the lore and the story, like you know, say for example, you play through the game, you play through Hytale, and you encounter, you know, the Outlanders, and you kind of, you know, see them, you have to deal with them, but they're not like a big threat. You don't really know too much about them, but you can choose to take a side quest where you have to investigate them, and you learn all of this different stuff about their history and, you know, how things work. And all of a sudden you have like this whole new like half to the game you didn't understand before. Same thing for like the Farrens or the Skoraks or something. That would be perfect if you could expand your story based on that, because that makes everything really like so much more immersive. I think Fallout New Vegas did something like that, where if you Fallout took a side quest, you just kind of had like a whole new storyline that you just followed. It was shorter than the main one, of course, but it was one. There was a lot of meat there. where like you discover this vault or something that had like some crazy stuff go on in it that you would have never discovered if you would have never chosen to like investigate that. So
exactly, I want the game to like, you know, give me a sense of intrigue, of like discovery when I go into things. I want the game to make me hate factions or love factions. Like, you know, I want there to be an emotional response that comes from me based on the choices that we make.
100%. That adds so much to like the immersion of the game. So if they nail that, that's going to be huge. So
definitely.
So moving on a little bit here, we're going to touch a little bit on the most recent blog post. So within it, the developers have teased us with a little sneak peek of the inventory and user interface elements within it. So do you think players' UI in multiplayer will be customizable by the servers they're playing on?
I mean, that I'm not sure of entirely, but I'd certainly hope that to be the case, seeing as just about everything else seems to be, you know, moddable. You know, everything seems to be completely customizable in the game. So having the flexibility to build your own custom UIs is something I personally would want to take advantage of when adding in like new systems to like our server, to our game modes, just because having generic UIs that are always the same doesn't lend itself to, you know, being intuitive when you're introducing new systems into the game. You know, if you are able to make your own kind of UI panels that lead the user in certain directions and help them make their choices and how they go about interacting with that stuff, that's a huge aspect of a game design that a lot of them fail at. And it's one of the biggest things I think that games have to be aware of. So if we're looking to make servers and game modes and all that kind of stuff, a big part of that's going to come down to the UI. So I really do hope that we get the chance to play around with that.
Yeah, and we don't want a Minecraft situation where like everything's a chest, you know, or an inventory menu that has some items locked in a certain space. Like, we don't want anything tacked on. So I 100% agree with that. So assuming it is possible to customize the inventory, do you think more advanced features like a video player or even a 2D game would be possible within it? Do you think it would go that far that would exceed the boundaries of Hytale's customization?
I mean, we've seen top-down iterations already of like games with like point and click in their initial, you know, announcement trailer, as well as a community video theater where players can watch things together. So I wouldn't say it's too far out of the realm of possibility for something like that to exist. Just because it seems like they're leading in that direction. I just don't know, like, I don't think you'll be able to go like true like 2D style. I think like you might be able to like lock your camera on a server to a certain perspective and make it like a platformer. But I don't know if you'd be able to, you know, fully implement like 2D kind of stuff into a game engine like that.
That's fair. It doesn't seem to be created for something like that. So if it was possible, it would probably you'd probably have to take a lot of kind of strange routes to do it, find a lot of workarounds. But I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see. That's definitely something that's way in the future from now.
It's stuff I'm super excited about.
Oh yeah, but people before that comes, people have to kind of figure out how to use it for the main game.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's going to be months of work.
Yeah, that's a kind of a to be discovered, I think, kind of thing. But it'll be really interesting to see where people can take it. I almost wonder if it'll be kind of like a kind of like a dream scenario. That game that just came out on the PS4 that everyone's been
I was looking at that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost a Hytale, but not.
It's for like more sense. Like hardcore 3D kind of stuff.
Right. It's kind of a whole game engine. You just kind of surf through different dreams or games that people have made, and you can make your own. That kind of goal sounds pretty similar to what Hytale's been reaching for. So it'd be interesting to see if it's quite as expansive as Dreams, because Dreams you can do pretty much anything in. So it's pretty interesting that Dreams came out when it did, because Hytale's coming out next year, and it'll be interesting to see if Hytale kind of lives up to that whole creativity, you know.
Definitely, we might see a huge surge of games that are just in that kind of realm,
which would be great, because that's something that we haven't seen in a long time. You know,
there hasn't been anything fresh. Honestly, it's all kind of just been shooters, ARPGs, MMOs, like the same kind of stuff, just prettier. You know. Yep.
100%. Like it'd be really cool if the industry shifted from like, you know, battle royales and shooters and, you know, everything that we've been getting to just like everyone can create something. Use our game to create yours. Like if that becomes like an industry thing, that's like crazy, because that's like never happened before. That's like never happened before. So that would be great. But anyway, we should probably move along to graphics designing is our next topic we're we're going to dive into a little bit. So while being a YouTuber, you're also very highly talented with graphics design, as we've touched on a little bit. Motion graphics and visual elements being among the list of things you're clearly very good at. So what inspired you to choose this field, and how did you first get into it?
It's a funny story. So like even when I was back in high school, we didn't really have an art program at all. It was kind of just sports and like AP programs and stuff like that. So I was like heavily invested in like science and like natural world and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of like towards the end of the year originally wanted to go into like game development. Still kind of actually do. That's kind of like my direction I wish I could just send my life in full time, you know. Yeah. But just when I was looking at colleges back in like 2009, that was during the time when actually a ton of studios began like closing their doors and laying people off, and there was like this huge flood of like talent into the you know, hireable community.
Right.
So I didn't feel comfortable betting my future on that continuing to happen with such a growing, highly employable workforce looking for new jobs. Right. So I kind of just pivoted at that point, and I decided to pursue a degree in motion graphics, and found that it would teach me a lot of the same kind of like design principles, but allow me to work in many different mediums for many different companies. Right. So even for myself, if I need to, you know, as a freelancer, which I still do. So I still kind of want to push myself into the realm of game development over the kind of like the next 20 years of my life, since games are kind of like a big passion point for me. Always have been. Started playing them when I was like 4 years old. So I've always loved that stuff. So I would love to push myself in that direction. Time will tell if that happens. But yeah, motion graphics just were the kind of the obvious choice for me to go in and allow me to kind of improve my skill set from that point out, you know.
Okay. Yeah. So was that your original plan before you know, started trying out YouTube?
What do you mean by that? Like
was that like your plan was to kind of get into motion graphics, get into game design? Was that like your like passion before you got into YouTube? Or
I actually I always been like an active, like I just watch things on YouTube all the time. I've always been a fan of like the really highly produced channels and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I always wanted to do YouTube, but I was always kind of the person that never made that jump, because I was always too worried. Like, I have a kind of a really high standard for what I put out and like to release to people to see. So like I'm hypercritical of stuff I do, and I have to have constantly other people look at it, which is another reason why the partnership with like Kodiak is very good, because I get an extra set of eyes that can tell me I'm just being ridiculous. You know, it's a very good thing. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to send my life down just the passion of working in like commercial art and stuff like that, and doing projects for people that need logos and designs for, you know, as Twitch started to open up, like doing stuff for that for people is a really cool thing that I could branch my career path into if I need be. So like there's a lot of good options, and I just really have always enjoyed it because I've always looked at everything in life from kind of like a design perspective. So it just kind of naturally fits. So
do you have any more like future or current projects going on with graphics design, animation, or VFX? Outside of YouTube?
Yeah, and in terms of like current projects, besides like the daily graphics that I make for work, no. Just because YouTube literally consumes every extra minute I have in my life outside of, you know, family and job. So like my original plan was to just keep making graphics and investing on the side until I could retire. That's kind of like was my plan as an adult, you know. But just like most people, you know, that's kind of what we do. But YouTube was something that I wanted to like get into like, you know, 10 years ago. So having the chance to finally do so now in a way that I feel comfortable is awesome. So there's no real like projects I'm working on the side because, you know, I just don't have time for them.
That's fair.
But I used to work on like music videos and stuff like that for you know, record labels and stuff like that. So those were always fun.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool to hear that you've kind of branched out your creative abilities a bit, because there's a lot of opportunities for stuff like that. So
yeah. I mean, YouTube alone lets me focus my creativity in like my own kind of way. Whereas like other things that I do for other people, everything has constraints, you know? So being able to have just a place where I could do my own thing is really refreshing to like my artistic kind of soul, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely something cool to have whenever you can kind of, you know, scratch that creative itch in a job setting. So yeah, that's definitely a cool thing to have. So of course on YouTube specifically, graphics design and visual effects are two areas that are very relevant and useful to have. So has your experience regarding those two things really benefited you on YouTube? And do you think you would be where you are now without those skills?
Yeah. So overall, they've been immensely helpful when creating like content at the level that our channel strives to do. It allows me to like work on like really complex, highly designed thumbnails, but do so very quickly and naturally.
Right.
You know, so it also helps me in keeping things organized, since I follow kind of like the industry standard of best practices when keeping my files and names correctly organized, and, you know, all the hierarchy of folders and everything, like everything's super clean and organized for me. So like on top of that, just having working knowledge and muscle memory inside of programs like, you know, After Effects, Premiere, Illustrator, Photoshop, all this kind of stuff lets me work on stuff at a much quicker pace, right? So if Kodiak and I didn't have these sorts of skills under our belt, we would probably be producing content at like half or even quarter of the rate that we're currently at now. But because we're like so versed in these skills, it's like 100% influenced our growth, even 200% to like an entirely different level. You know, so it definitely has benefited us greatly in this regard.
Yeah, 100%. It's cool that you guys work together so well, because that's hard to find on the internet nowadays.
Like very rare.
Yeah,
like when we found each other, we were like, you know, we're very similar.
Yeah, there was definitely something there for sure. Because like obviously, I mean, we can see on Legion that like there's an obvious like there's something that works on Legion for sure.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see that. It's really cool to see that you guys are killing it, because that's rare on YouTube for sure. That is 100%.
Especially hard these days too. It's just,
you
know, it's not like it was, you know, 10 years ago where, you know, all the legacy creators that have like these huge variety channels, like people ask like, oh, look, they did it easy. Why can't you? It's not the same field anymore at all. You have to do so much more work to even achieve a percentage of what they now just get naturally. You know?
Yeah. YouTube was such a different place back then. It's like a totally different website at this point with the same name. I mean, maybe, but that's like it. 100%. It's really cool that you guys found that. So pretty big question for our final question here. In your opinion, what attributes and skills should an aspiring graphic artist have to get started, and what advice can you give to beginners?
That is a loaded question. I would say anyone who wants to get into design in general, I think you should already be someone who makes like note of design in just about everything that you do or that you observe in life, right? So like the products you consume, things that you buy, or even places you go to see, all have intentional design footprints. Like the world would be a 100% boring place if it wasn't for artists. Right. Like 100%. Everything that you do in your daily life has a design element to it. Right?
100%. Yeah.
So they influence the way you think, they influence the way you interact, and things that are on a whole nother level that even people don't even realize that just going on like subconsciously. Even things subtly as like color combinations elicit emotional responses in people, and understanding how those colors affect people is also a very big thing, right? So like pay attention to the world around you, seek out things that really catch your eye and feed into your own personal style. Like use the world around you to help shape your design skills and help you design a footprint for yourself. You know, understand how typography alone can sell a product just as effectively as it can completely kill it. Like if your logo is not on point, it's the difference between it selling well and it just never going anywhere. You know, spend the time going through design blogs, buy concept art books, even taking photos and being cognizant of like the composition that your photo is shot in, like, and how that changes the way that you look at that, you know. And I think that my biggest tip, something that's always kind of stuck with me, is that complexity doesn't necessarily mean it's better. Even the simplest of designs have their place in communicating information that a more complex approach may completely fall flat on its face. You know, like there's a time and a place for everything. So like, I would definitely say that's the biggest thing to keep aware of as a designer. Like just be observant of the world around you and use that to influence your design. That would be my biggest thing.
Yep. I think that one really hits me, the whole kind of, you know, less can be more thing for sure. I thrive in like kind of minimalism. So yeah, that was great. That was awesome. So we have one little segment left. That was our last question, but we have 3 community questions that we got from some people over on Twitter, I believe, maybe on Reddit.
Cool.
This has kind of been all around the place. So first one is from Chris Short asks, what feature or features are you most excited for from Hytale?
I'd say the most exciting feature that I'm excited for, and it seems like such a little thing, but it changes the landscape of building like no other, is vertical slabs.
Yeah.
I am like, everybody laughs at me when I say this as like my biggest point, but good God, as someone who builds like really detailed things, vertical slabs compound that what's it called? That kind of detail you can get to a whole nother level. Like you can make things you couldn't make before just because you're like, oh man, I wish that I could put this block here and make it look naturally looking this way. So now I have to figure out another route. Now you can do that. Like,
yeah,
that's my most excited thing.
Vertical slabs are. I remember back when that first was revealed and how much people were like, that was like a big thing. Like it's crazy. I don't know why has Minecraft not done it? It's been around for like 10 years. Like
I don't get it.
It doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Like the textures, they have all the textures. Like would be, I feel like it's such an easy thing to
just flip it. Like I don't get it either. It's weird. But I mean, they did it for stairs. Like I don't understand.
Exactly.
It's so weird. So our next question comes from Anonymous, I guess, because there's no name here. Do you think that what the Hytale team is trying to achieve is too ambitious?
I definitely think it could be. And I say that particularly as a person who has I follow Star Citizen also, and I know that is a huge mess. That's the classic case of somebody who has their hands in too many things as like the director and just wants everything to be perfect before designing the groundwork for everything. You know what I mean? Like you want a playable game and then you want to expand on that. That's like the biggest thing you want to do. So, I mean, as long as they're really focusing on their main features being fleshed out and complete, like they're all playable, I don't think it's too ambitious. But if they're getting into the small little details too heavily, it's going to bite them in the foot. It's going to bite them.
Right. It's all about execution. It's all about how actually the end product is.
Yeah, it's easier to build on top of things. It's easier to build on top of things than to completely add new systems from scratch to make up for shortfalls. Right.
So it all depends on how we get it. 2021, I think, and we'll be able to see. Like, I think this was too big for him, but I think they have a pretty good grasp on things so far from the little we've seen. So I'm optimistic, but we'll have to wait and see.
Their communication needs to be 100% better. I think they need a community manager that really is active with the community.
100%. Their communication needs work, I think, for sure. So last question here, the final one. What kind of videos do you think you'll make once Hytale releases? This is a community question.
Gotcha. I touched on that a little bit earlier, where I'm going to be really heavily into like the build kind of side of things and teaching people how to really be creative with their stuff, because that's just something I've always been passionate about. Never got into it with Minecraft, but I would definitely want to get into it with Hytale. Aside from that, ones that I personally might invest in, I really like doing guides. I like doing, if there's any sort of like build element to things where I can create, like the way your character functions in combat, even for like PvP, that'd be something I'd maybe touch on, like tricks with that kind of stuff. I'm a highly competitive player when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I'd probably make stuff around those regards. Maybe spotlighting really cool creations within the community, such as, like new game modes, new mini games, stuff like that. That would be something I'd be really interested in. And then there's a lot of other things that I know I'm going to be doing, but I can't talk about them yet because I'm working on them on the side.
That's fair. Well, it's awesome to hear that you're killing it with Legion, dude. You have some plans for Hytale when that comes out. Some great talking points this time. I think this was a cool one. Some interesting perspectives. With all that said, that's all the questions we had for you today. If there's anything else you'd like to say, socials, whatever, feel free to do so now.
Gotcha. Well, you can find Kodiak and myself, along with a fantastic, friendly, and just downright helpful community over at Legion Gaming on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at Unite the Legion, as well as my personal Twitter of the Livid Legend. We also have someone, be it ourselves or other members of our stream team, that stream also 7 days a week over at twitch.tv/Unite the Legion. So those are the places you can find us at.
Very cool. So it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure to check out Legion Gaming on Twitter. All their links, everything will be in the description below. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's podcast, and consider subscribing if I could ever say it without stuttering. If you guys would like to hear more. This has been your host, Fezzy the Frog, and we'll see you around here next time.
This video was sponsored by Virtual Gladiators. Virtual Gladiators have everything you need to make your very own Minecraft or Hytale server. Click the link in the description to find out more.